cosine. Literally.
Law of cosine.
Too hot for you.
Now, I could label this if I want to. As a matter of fact, I probably would label this. A lot of times when you see formula sheets, it'll have 3 different formulas for this, but it's just based on how you decide to label it. So let me do this. I'm going to label this A, B, C. And that means that the little sides across from A, this will be little a, side across from B will be little b, the side across from C would be little c. I have 3 sides given, but I don't know any angles, do I? So this is not going to be a straightforward problem, but we can figure it out. The law of cosine says that if I have a side, and I'm going to pick, I want to find x, right? This is what I'm trying to find right here. So let's kind of solve for, we're going to write it in terms of this a here. So if you look in your book, this formula is going to look different. It's the same idea. It's just, usually books give 3 formulas and your book only gives 1. If I have little a squared, it's equal to, again, this is not a right triangle, it would be equal to the other 2 sides squared minus 2 times the other 2 sides, so 2 times b times c. And then here's how the reason I chose to label it the way I did. I'm trying to find x, and isn't x angle A? I'm just going to put A here instead of x, just so you kind of see how this is working. So the angle that I'm trying to find here, that will be the little letter squared on the other side. Doesn't this look a lot like the Pythagorean theorem with some junk added on the end? Kind of. If I labeled it the way the book does, it usually looks like in the book they put c squared is a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. The angle that you take the cosine of for the law of cosines matches the opposite side that's out front. So I just chose to label it this way by accident. Okay, so let's go write stuff in. I know what A is. It is 19, and I'm going to square it. B squared would be what, 21 squared? What is C squared? C is going to be what? 16 squared. Now, if you look at the formula, the way all these formulas work, is this 21 and this 16 that are on this side, they go right here. So it's like whatever sides you squared, you're going to now multiply them by 2 and subtract them. And then we're going to have the cosine of A, which A is my x. I'm really trying to find angle A here. The reason I needed this one is if law of sines, I needed 2 angles. And I don't even get 1 here, do I? If I was just missing 1 angle, but I had all the sides, I could use the law of sines. But here, I just got all these sides and no angles. So what am I going to do? That's when I go to the law of cosines. Now, this is ugly. Let's do this. Why don't we try to just type it all in our calculator at one time? Let's solve for cosine A. So if I'm solving for cosine A, I'd have the 19 squared on this side. Couldn't I move the 21 squared and the 16 squared over here by subtracting them, right? If I want to move something to the other side, I do the opposite, and 21 squared and 16 squared were positive. So I could just say, well, it's 19 squared minus 21 squared minus 16 squared, and that would be equal to minus 2 times 21 times 16 cosine A. Now, I mean, I could find all those numbers and write them out, but you can do all this at once in the calculator, and it actually ends up being a little easier just to type it straight in. So that's what I'm going to do in a minute, just to show you that you might find it easier than writing down each of these values and moving each of these values over. You can simplify, though, if you want to at this point. If I'm trying to solve for cosine A, isn't all this stuff multiplied in front of it? Isn't that just what that's saying? Wouldn't it be negative 2 times 21 times 16 times the cosine of A? So couldn't I divide both sides by that, all those numbers, like this? See what I'm doing? I'm going to let the calculator do all my work, and I'm going to try to do the minimal amount of punching necessary in writing. So I have cosine of A is all that mess, which my calculator is happy to find for me. So that's like -2 times 21 times 16. If I want to find an angle, what do I have to do?
Oh, inverse.
Inverse cosine. So if I want to write this out algebraically, I could do this. I could say, I want to get A by itself. It has the cosine done to it. So if I want to undo the cosine, it would be the inverse cosine. But if I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other side, right? So this looks like this. Angle A, I'm going to write it on the left-hand side. Angle A is equal to the inverse cosine, and then the calculator is going to open up this parentheses for me, but I got a fraction to type in, so here's what I got to do. I got to put the top all in a set of parentheses to tell the calculator the top all goes together. And then when I get done with that, I'll hit the divide sign to show the fraction bar, and on the bottom I'm going to put all that in parentheses. I'm going to put -2 times 21 times 16. And I can type that all in at one time instead of having to get each one of those numbers and then actually go subtract them and let the calculator do the dirty work, right?
Why keep saying error?
If it says error, you're entering something in wrong. So kind of follow along, and let's see if we read, when I read back to you what you should type in, see where you need to put something, okay? Because a lot of times you'll go, oh, I left that little parentheses out or something. All right, so I'm going to hit second cosine. The calculator opened up a parentheses. I'm going to put in another opening parentheses because I got a numerator. I want to make sure it all goes together. So 19, and I'm going to hit x squared, minus, make sure you're hitting the minus sign and not a negative. That'll do it. That'll make an error. So 21 squared minus 16 squared. I'm just hitting x squared each time. Now that's the end of my numerator, so I'm going to close that parentheses out. Now I'm going to hit the fraction bar. I mean the divide. That's the fraction bar, right? Sorry. And then on the bottom, I'm going to put all that in parentheses. Now in parentheses, I'm going to do this. I'm going to hit, instead of drawing a bunch of parentheses in there, I can represent multiplying by hitting the times button in between. So I'm going to put -2 times 21 times, what was it, 16? And now that's the whole denominator, so I'm going to close the whole denominator out. But then I need another parentheses for the overall inverse cosine. Did you see? You found it? Okay. A lot of times it's just one tiny little thing that you don't put in and the calculator freaks out because it doesn't know how to read it. So if you hit enter, 60, right? Let me, it was 60 even. Yeah, it was a 30, 60, 90. So this is a right triangle, apparently. Oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
I don't know if it is or not. Well, we don't know.
Could be 60, 60.
Yeah, it could be 60, 60, 60. Yeah, so we can't make assumptions. Yeah, we just can't make any assumptions here. So that's 60 degrees.
I could have just said having breathing problems.
Me.
Do you asthma?
Nope.
Okay, that's
I
good.
just can't breathe.
I'm sorry. Okay, so 30 degrees is here. We get an angle, and usually when we just have one angle, or we're trying to find one angle, come on 30, this one we're going to use the law of cosines. If you notice, we got 30, 26, and this is x. This is not a right triangle, even though I drew it, kind of looks like it. We can't make that assumption. So if I look, my unknown value is across from my 30 degrees. If I want to find that side, what I can do is this. I can say, here's how you're really thinking about the law of cosines without looking at the formula. I want to find that side. That's what I want over here, x squared, right? So it's the other two sides squared. It's 30 squared plus 26 squared.
Are you going to have to square root the whole thing?
Yes, in the end you're going to. Minus 2 times these two sides. That minus 2 times 30 and 26. Okay. And then it's the cosine of the angle across from the side we don't know. So it's going to be the cosine of 30 degrees. And Elena's right. When we calculate all this, it's going to be x squared. So what if we let the calculator do all that for us?
Yes.
Could I go ahead and square root first, like this,
Oh,
and type it in all at once? Yeah, I could.
Yeah, we can.
Yep, can. So this will be x equal the square root of 30 squared. You could just get your calculator and type it in just like this. 30 squared plus 26 squared minus 2 times 30 times 26 cosine 30 degrees. Just when you get done, you're going to have to close out this cosine, angle, and then you'll have to close out the square root thing too. So at the end, you're going to end up with 2 parentheses. So second square root, 30 x squared, hit x squared, plus 26, hit x squared, oops, I put a plus, so I got to go back, minus 2 times 30 times 26 times cosine 30 degrees, put a parentheses after the 30, put a parentheses to end the whole square root. Hit enter. Aha! Your answer is 15. If you round to 1 decimal point, you get 15. So I could have labeled this is C and this is little c, and I could have said, oh, let me call that A and this little a, and then 26 would have been little a, and little b would have been 30. I could have labeled the whole thing and flat gone by a formula. But if you understand what it's saying, the missing side is the other two sides squared, minus 2 times those two sides that you knew, times the cosine of the angle across from the missing side. Okay, here I would have used the formula. Had I labeled it and used the formula, I would have had this. Let's see, I called A 26, so I probably would have switched those, but it would have been, we'll say square root of C squared since I wrote square root over here. B squared plus A squared, which I could have written as A squared plus B squared, but just to match the numbers up. Minus 2 times A times B times cosine of 30 degrees, which is C, cosine of angle C. Let me write the C up there. Okay, so there's all kinds of variations of this, and if you understand the concept behind the formula, it's easier to do it than if you just label and try to label everything and stick it in the right spot, because it gets a little confusing.